what's cooler than a cool piece of media is the backstory behind the creation of said media. To reference something I've talked about before and look forward to continuing to talk about in the future, I'm almost more fascinated by all the things that went wrong during the production of Final Fantasy XIII than by how much I dislike the final product. Similarly speaking, the Japanese animated TV series The Vision of Escaflowne had a number of interesting personalities and several bumps in the road leading up to its creation, but ultimately a very entertaining franchise was established despite the few flaws that can probably be attributed to those creation struggles. So thanks to Matthew, I'm happy to be talking to you guys about the final finished product of The Vision of Escaflowne. I want to distinguish that it's primarily the TV series I'm covering, and directly off of old Bondi discs, not the incredibly short and edited run it had on Fox Kids. There are multiple manga and movie adaptations that have been released over the years, all of which are significantly different from this TV series. Truth be told, of all of these works, the TV series remains my favorite. Produced by Sunrise in 1996, it's a series about a teenage girl by the name of Hitomi who's just trying to tell the boy she likes that she likes him, when she's spirited away to a foreign land called Gaia. On Gaia, the Earth and the Earth's moon can be seen from the sky. The land is high fantasy, but with an added element of giant robots called Gaimeliths used in war between countries. The leading male who accidentally brings Hitomi to Gaia is a young man named Vaughn, who has just become the king of his country, Phenalia. Soon, his country and many other neighboring countries are attacked by the Zybok Empire, looking to rule the entirety of Gaia. Over the course of the series, multiple people from around Gaia join Vaughn and Hitomi in a mission to defend their collective lands. But there's further underlying mystery. Hitomi seems very adept in accidentally predicting the future, which saves her friends multiple times, and there's a great mystery behind the leader of the Zybok Empire who calls himself Emperor Dornkirk, an old man living inside a machine. Then there's all these mysteries about an ancient winged race of people from the once great civilization of Atlantis, not necessarily the one we commonly refer to as being under the sea, and why it is they no longer exist. Add on top of that all kinds of soap opera romance, and there's a ton of stuff to be swallowed in the series. In fact, perhaps at times it can be a bit too much. Of course, there may be a reason for that. Originally, this 26-episode series was slated to be a 39-episode series, with direction under Yasuhiro Imagawa. But then he was needed to direct G Gundam, and many of the series' original plans were put on hold or were altered heavily. 2 years later, the final director, Kazuki Akane, came in and gave us the series we have today. Many of the old stereotypical shonen or boys kind of ideas were thrown out and replaced with very gender-neutral images and ideas, and more women-friendly romance elements. And thanks to the budget, the series lost a potential 14 episodes, which would have been great to further elaborate on some ideas. It isn't very well explained exactly how it is that Hitomi and other people of Earth are able to travel back and forth between Gaia and the Earth. Just when you think you understand, it turns out that they do something else that confuses you to what you thought they were doing. Maybe it's the mystical pendant that Hitomi wears. But then, no, she got it from her grandmother, who went to Gaia once without the pendant, so it isn't that. Then, once Hitomi gets to Gaia, everybody promises her that they'll figure out a way to send her back home.
After the coronation ceremony, we will do all in our power to find a way for you to return safely to the Mystic Moon.
But she just sort of does it on her own by wishing for it? Then she comes back to Gaia, somehow, and is later sent back home by Vaughn using the heart of his Gaimelith or something? Like, it was never previously established that it could do that, and to the best of my knowledge, up until that point, nobody actually actively knew how to get back and forth, so that didn't really make any sense. So, despite a lot of things that really kinda did feel rushed, it really is a beautiful series with tons of different things to enjoy. It really does have something for everybody. High fantasy, giant mechs, pretty characters, though everyone will be quick to comment on their outrageous noses, tons of forbidden romance, cat girls, intensely detailed facial expressions, old scientific historical figures, and an interest in earthly occult such as Atlantis, tarot cards, and whether or not you can control things such as fate and destiny. Furthermore, the soundtrack is absolutely beautiful, which is no surprise when you learn that it was composed by the legendary Yoko Kanno, known for other anime like Macross Plus and Cowboy Bebop, and more recently Space Dandy, along with her own band, Seatbelts. The opening theme song nearly brings me to tears almost every time I hear it. In regards to the characters, when I was younger, a lot of them really used to get on my nerves. To an extent, some of them still do. Merle is an approximately 13-year-old cat girl who's intensely protective of King Von and can't handle Hitomi being anywhere near him, whether she's interested in Von or not. Hitomi herself has all kinds of romance problems. Back home, she's infatuated with a boy named Amano, but then finds herself on Gaia, infatuated with a knight who rescues her by the name of Alan, who looks vaguely like Amano. I guess then I can see her infatuation. But then over the course of the series, she starts developing feelings for Vaughn, and her inability to pick one man to love is somewhat grating, especially when she starts going to great mystical lengths to keep Alan for herself, when Princess Malerna has feelings for him too. But then, who does Alan like, if anybody? Alan was in a forbidden relationship with Malerna's now-dead sister once, and maybe he likes Malerna now, but he doesn't act on it hardly at all. And then, in a strange twist in the series, he begins falling for Hitomi instead? Then he falls out of it again? What is even going on? And then Malerna is engaged to a wealthy scholar named Dryden, who genuinely cares for her, but she doesn't like him back because she's in love with Alan. And then by the end of the series, pretty much nobody is in a relationship with anybody because everybody's all screwed up or circumstances drove them apart and you can't understand why some of the threads didn't feel resolved, likely for budget cut reasons. I guess really it's less that I dislike the characters and more that I dislike the romance angle of it because it seems so petty and convoluted. But then I realized after many years after having first seen it, maybe the reason why I get so angry at it is because I can see real life being portrayed through it. Because I certainly have been and have known many people in many similar situations, especially in youth, who just don't have their lives and priorities figured out yet. Maybe it makes me so angry because I've made and seen too many of my own mistakes, and seeing it reflected is enough to get me heated. But you know what? That means it's real. Like, these people and their conflicted emotions are very real things. Do you know how many years it took me to appreciate that? Probably too many. And that sort of thing is sort of shaming to say, but it's the truth. And then there's the characters in the Zybok Empire who, when I was much younger, I latched onto incredibly hard. You'll learn only a few episodes in that Strategos is actually King Von's older brother, who was originally destined to be king instead, but when he failed his ritual to become king, Emperor Dornkirk convinced him to join the Zybok Empire under the pretense that the work they'd do together would end all wars. That was a lie, but he bought it at first. He's still a decent dude, though, who rescued 2 catgirl sisters and gave them new lives and new hope. So despite the fact that the 2 sisters are working for the wrong side, they do it because of loyalty to a man who treated them well when they thought they were at the end of their lives. Then, oh man, I want to talk about Delandau and Emperor Dornkirk, but I gotta admit, with both of these characters, this information could get a little bit spoilery. And I do want you guys to watch this series, so here's what I'm gonna do. I want you guys, if you do not want to hear these spoilers, to check out this time marker down here below my face, and then skip directly to that time marker and you won't be hearing any of the spoiler information at all. Okay? Here we go. DeLandau is totally an amazing character. I originally fell for him as a character real hard because he was just so intense. He's already kind of a crooked dude doing the dirty work of the Empire and starting dirty battles all over Gaia. And by the time Vaughn leaves a scar on his cheek, he's completely lost himself in his bloodlust, especially at the idea of killing Vaughn in revenge. However, it turns out he's been nothing but a puppet in the Empire's army, as he was once Alan's younger sister, who has been experimented upon, had her gender changed without her permission, and now doesn't seem to remember her past with her family anymore. So twisted! When I first saw it, it blew my mind. And finally, with Emperor Dornkirk, you might wonder why exactly it is that he not only wants militaristic control over Gaia, but also over such things as fate and destiny. Turns out he actually came to Gaia from Earth quite a long time ago, although that span of time isn't specified. But you can get a general sense of when that might be as you start to learn that his name was once Isaac, and that on Earth he studied the occult and discovered the attraction of two objects, i.e. gravity, then further lusted for control over this kind of attraction, thus leading him to design machines to control fate and destiny. In other words, this Isaac guy isn't just anybody. He's Isaac freaking Newton! That's right, guys! The main villain of the TV series The Vision of Escaflowne is Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton didn't die in the 1700s, he just traveled through space and dimensions, continued living for over 200 years, and built his own evil empire on a planet in an alternate dimension. Sure, that sounds like the Isaac Newton from the history books, right? It's so ludicrous, I almost can't even get mad at it. In fact, it's freaking hilarious. How will our friends defeat Isaac Newton? Can he really control fate and destiny when that's exactly what killed off the great civilization of Atlantis? Well, I won't tell you that much, but it certainly is a beautiful ride all the way there. To sum this up, I don't necessarily think that the Vision of Escaflowne is perfect, but man, is it gorgeous. And maybe it's even a guilty pleasure of mine. Even when I find myself irritated by things characters do, or blown away by really bizarre story twists, I have kind of an old emotional attachment to the series that I don't think I can get rid of. I'm easily drawn to the high fantasy world, as well as the fantasy mechs. The art direction is beautiful, if sometimes strange, and the music complements it perfectly. While you're at it, check out the movie by comparison. It's by and large only vaguely like its TV show counterpart, but it's also strikingly beautiful. As for the various manga series, I'd give them a pass personally. But I'm technically not reviewing any of those, so you could go and see for yourself whether you prefer those adaptations or not. Admittedly, you're going to have a hard time finding a legal way to watch this series. The DVDs are no longer in print, so they'll run you a pretty penny anymore. But if you do manage to find copies, watch it while you can. Here's hoping that eventually somebody, somewhere, will reprint the discs one day or give us legal streaming access. It'd sure be a shame to let such a beautiful series such as this slip away forever.